Hey guys, this is Karthik from the hiddendeveloper.com YouTube channel. Okay, so this is my second video on debugging a Samsung Smart TV application. So let's get started. For those of you who have not taken a look at the part 1 video of debugging as per Samsung Smart TV application, I have provided a link below. Please take a look at those links for those of you who have missed my first video tutorial. So apart from that, without further ado, let's get started. So fire up your Samsung Smart TV SDK IDE. Okay, here I am using the same previous project that I've used for demonstration purposes on my part 1 video tutorial, and I'm using the same code. I have not made any further changes here. So and also, in order to save some time for our video, I have pre-launched the debugging session with this code, so I can see my output directly in the emulator here, and also at the same time I can see the debugging window that is launched along with the debugging session. Okay, so let's get started. So this is the debugging window that, as we have discussed in the previous video, and in our previous video we have gone through the elements and the resources section. So in this video I'll be taking you through the network section, the sources section, and the console section, and we'll leave the next three, that is the timeline, the profiles, the audit section, to my next video. So in this video I'm going to demonstrate the network section, the sources, and the console section. So among these three, the most important one is the sources section, because that part is where the actual and the major part of the debugging process happens in an application. So let's take a look at the sources section. So what you're looking at the screen right now is the sources section. Here you can see on the left hand side there is a toggle panel that shows the list of actual files that has been utilized in your project. So if you take a look at that, if you inside this manager widget, I'll open this toggle window so you can have a better look at it. So inside the manager widget we have imported, or we have used, this tv key value.js file, and also we have used the widget.js file. So these two things are the ones that we have included from our landing page. So let's go ahead, and if you open index.html, this is our landing page, and if you take a look at the header section, you can see we have imported these two files and the widget file for the application lifecycle. So this is the one that manages the application, calls the application manager, etc functions. The TV key value is the one that we are using for handling the TV remote key operations. The event handlers for those remote keys are implemented in this TV key values. So these two are the basic files that any application needs, and these two are by default included in your project once you create a default Samsung Smart TV JavaScript application. So in the debugging session, the thing that mostly interests us is the file that we include, that is main.js. So inside this file we will be having the user defined logic, etc. So in the last video tutorial, if you remember exactly, you can see this is the change that I have made exactly, like I have added some value to the local storage. So let's say I need to debug this process. So in this debugging window, how this debugging happens is that I'll be setting something called breakpoints in a line. So what this breakpoints does is that once I set a breakpoint in a line, once our code gets executed by the interpreter, the code, when it reaches the line that we have set the breakpoint, the code execution stops. So this execution will not continue until we allow it to. So once the execution stops right there, we can inspect each and every variable that is initialized and used before that line. Let's say, for example, I'm going to set a breakpoint at the line 15. Before the code part before the line, that is from 1 to 15, gets executed in this current file. let's go ahead and add a breakpoint at this line 15 and see what happens. So there are two ways of adding breakpoint. One way is to go to that line and give a click. You can see a blue marker that indicates that a breakpoint is set at this point. So one more way of adding a breakpoint is that you can, like, for disabling a breakpoint, all you have to do is click the same line again. And another way of adding a breakpoint is go to that line, right click, and select the option add breakpoint. So there are two ways of adding breakpoint. So now we have added a breakpoint at line 15. Once you add a breakpoint at line 15, on the right hand side there is an inspector panel which shows, okay, in under the breakpoint section in main.js line 15 we have set a breakpoint. Now let's go ahead and rerun this app. For rerunning, all you have to do is click on here and press F5 in your screen so that you can see the application reruns and a blue line that is seen on the line 15. This indicates that our code execution has stopped on line 15. So let's go ahead and inspect this local storage variable. All you have to do is take your mouse pointer and hover over the variable that you need to inspect. Once you hover your mouse pointer over that variable, you can see a small pop-up window inside which it shows the contents of the variable. So currently inside this local storage, what I can see is that I have an application status that I have set in the local variable, the constructor, length, new value. So these two are the values that I have added, and the others are like the default local storage object properties. You can verify this here. You can go to the resources section, and once you select, sometimes the resources section is a bit unresponsive because of the connection problems between the debugging session and the emulator. In that case, all you have to do is go to the console and type console.log local storage. Once you click these contents, the contents that are shown here are the same stuff that we saw in the pop-up window that showed us when we inspected this local storage object. So these are the two values. See, application status, and the new value is the value that I have set manually inside this local storage variable. So using this way you can inspect what each variable contains. Similarly, when we go back to the sources section and let's say I need to inspect the widget API, when I hover over that widget API, I can see the list of methods that are inside this widget API object, methods, properties, and the values contained in them if it is a property. Okay, and if I need to inspect this object, I hover over that, and it shows the list of methods that are inside the current object. Okay, this is how you can inspect each and every variable before the breakpoint, so that you can take a deep look inside the current objects and the values contained in them. So this will give you a deeper perspective of the values that are contained in your code, so that the developer can take a much more deeper access inside the program and see what is happening and what went wrong, etc., in case of any errors if happened. So this is how you can debug, and two ways you can inspect a variable. Let's say I need to examine this local storage. One way is I hover my mouse pointer over that variable and see the contents, and another way is go to the console and console log the name of that variable. Console log. Okay, so say type this, I'll be just console log the name of the variable. So these are the two ways that you can inspect here. And the one in the sources section, the inspector panel, the contents inside this inspector panel are read only. You cannot edit something there. Let's say you need to do some minor calculations or some rough calculations inside the values that are present here. Let's say, for example, I need to add something to the local storage object, or I need to add some operations to the Samsung Smart TV. I need to change this value to something else. So all I have to do is, you cannot change it here. This is a read-only view, so you cannot edit something here. For editing something, you have to take the scratch pad, as I call it in our debugging session, is a console. Local storage dot get item application status. Okay, I missed the underscore. Okay, so you can get the value. Let's say I need to change this value to something else. So I can call set item application status to Samsung Smart TV V5.1. Okay, now my application, I have changed the value of the local storage. So like for editing a values or taking some values from our input and making some calculations or modifications with it, you can use the console section. This is like a scratch pad in your debugging session. Okay, now in the sources section, our thing is stopped. Let's say I need to add one more breakpoint at the line 13. I have done that. And once I do here, the breakpoint inspector panel shows the list of breakpoints, and also the scope viewer, as I call this window, is showing the current list of variables inside the scope, the list of variables that are used and initialized before when the code reaches this breakpoint. Okay, so let's say I run this code once again. Now my breakpoint has reached the point 13. So in order to make this breakpoint continue to the next point, let's say from 13 to 15, which is the position of my next breakpoint, all I have to do is press the play button, which says the resume script. Okay, so this button, what it does is that it will make the code execution continue and stop at the next breakpoint. So when I click resume, you can see that this breakpoint has skipped from 13 to 15. Okay, so this is how I'll continue breakpoints, and you can set the number of breakpoints that you can set is unlimited. You can set the breakpoints wherever in your code, in which places you think that your code has some problems, so that you can stop your code execution right at that point, and you can inspect the variables and figure out the cause of your error. So in the breakpoints, one more thing that I want to show is that you can set conditions in this breakpoint. Let's say, for example, I'm adding a for loop here. So let's go ahead and add a for loop in here. So open up our JavaScript file and say in the load function I'm adding a for loop. So for where I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus console.log I. Okay, so this is nothing but a for loop that prints the list of the I values from 0 to 9. Okay, so I save this code right here, go to the console section and I refresh this code. Okay, I can see the for loop has been appeared here, and I'm removing the breakpoints here, and I'm setting the breakpoint at line 18. So now if you say, what would happen is that, as you have expected, for each loop our code is going to stop at the breakpoint 18. Now I need to prevent that. Let's say I need to check this code. Let's assume that I have implemented some logic inside this for loop, and right now obviously I'm showing console.log output only, but let's assume that I have implemented some functionality inside this for loop, and I need to check those contents only for the 5th iteration. So if you normally check a breakpoint, the debugger does is that it will be stopping on every iteration of the for loop. Let's say I need to stop at the 5th iteration, so I can give a condition at the breakpoint here. So for giving a condition, all I have to do is right click at the breakpoint and select edit breakpoint. So here I need to give a condition if I equal to 5. Okay, so now this breakpoint is only going to get triggered only when the value is equal to I. So when the expression, so this is the expression that I have given. Okay, once this expression is true, our breakpoint gets fired. In other case, breakpoint will continue as normal, it will be skipped. Okay, so if you have set a condition in the breakpoint, it will be indicated by means of an orange color, which says that it has some condition to satisfy in order to be get triggered. So let's go ahead and refresh our app once again. Now you can see that something has triggered our breakpoint. So let's go ahead and check what is it. If you check the value of I, by default it shows 5. Okay, so that means our breakpoint got triggered once our breakpoint expression was true. Okay, so similarly you can set conditions in breakpoint. Conditional breakpoints help you catch some errors that occurs on specific conditions. So these are the things that you can do. Even there are a lot more other things, like you can set up breakpoints on AJAX request, you can select workers, you can set watch expressions here. So those are like beyond the scope of this book, and there are excellent tutorials out there on the web that shows you how to do all this stuff and all that. Here I have demonstrated a little bit view of how to debug the code that you write for Samsung Smart TV in a most basic form, so that the other developers can understand. And also the thing that I've demonstrated here is not something new to the normal web developers and other more experienced developers who are more regularly used to this debugging process. So for those, I have done nothing here. This is for somebody who are entirely new to this debugging session in a smart TV and also in the general web development domain. Okay, so this is all what you can do. These are the common functions in a debugger session. So in the console section, as I have mentioned, this is a script editor or a scratchpad, etc., where you can check little code snippets here. And also let's go ahead and take it the network panel. This network panel is something that shows the list of files that are used in your app, and this panel is used to analyze the network performance of your app. So once you take a look at this file, once I refresh, let's go ahead and refresh our app. Okay, I'm removing this breakpoint, I'm letting my code execute. I go to network. If you see, okay, my application is using index.html, widget.js, tv key value, main.js, main css. So these are the files that my application have used for its working, and the method that was used, HTTP method that was used to get those files, and the response, okay, if I have successfully retrieved my file or not, the type of that file, and who initiated the download of these files, and the size, the time taken here. So in this network panel, you can see the time taken here. Let's say if some of my files is taking a very long time to get load, and in that case our application performance or the startup time may get elongated a little bit. So in those cases, this network panel will give us valuable insights on which file is taking so long time, why is it taking so long. So in that case, we can do something in order to reduce the transmission time, and so that to speed up our application's responsiveness. Okay, so network related issues. If you have anything, if you think that your app startup is slow, or your app is getting something very slow, or if it is waiting for it for a very long time, that adds to more delay in your app. So this is the place where you have to take a look. Okay, so if I select main.js, you can see the preview, also the headers that are used to send this file. Okay, get request and status code, etc., and the response, exactly the response that you have got, etc. This also provides a little preview window here for each of the files. You can inspect them, and if you close this thing and get a general view, you will get the network related performance readings of your app. And if you find something wrong here, you can go directly to that file and fix it, maybe minify it or split it up into multiple files, etc., etc., and then speed up your app. So these are the three sections: the network, sources, and the console are the ones that we have covered in this video tutorial, and I'm leaving the timeline, profiles, and audits to my next video, which is part 3 in debugging. So in my next video I'll be breaking this debugging series limit. So let's say I have published 1, now I'm publishing 2, and 3 will be published after something, make a video with another topic instead of like continuously publishing the debugging smart TV series. So my next video will be basing on showing you people how to use the input method editor, also known as the IME, in a Samsung smart TV environment. So that's all about it. Stay tuned for my next video on how to use the input method editor on a Samsung smart TV. Thank you for watching.